Listen, some women ain't built like the world around them. They ain't loud, they ain't thirsty for attention, they ain't moving with the trends. They move like time don't control them, like they've been here before, like life taught them lessons before life even happened. This message right here is for the women with old souls, the ones who walk with purpose, who love with wisdom, who carry storms in silence. Let's talk about the 12 signs that show you're not just any woman. You're a woman with depth, with intuition, with a spirit older than your age. Old soul women move with a different rhythm. They don't rush, they don't chase, they don't scatter their energy in every direction just to feel busy. Their movement is intentional, aligned, and rooted in purpose. When they step, it's with meaning. When they speak, it's with clarity. When they choose, it's with conviction. They understand that everything in life carries a cost: time, peace, energy, emotion. So they don't spend themselves on anything that doesn't grow them. They're not moved by trends, noise, or pressure from the world. They're moved by their own inner compass, a compass shaped by experience, by intuition, by a sense of wisdom that feels older than their age. They've seen enough, felt enough, survived enough to know that direction matters more than speed. When an old soul woman walks away from something, it's never out of fear. It's out of understanding. She knows the difference between investment and self-sacrifice. She knows when something is draining instead of inspiring. She knows when a situation has already taught her what she needed to learn. She doesn't linger in places that shrink her. She doesn't cling to people who confuse her value. She doesn't fight to hold what her spirit is telling her to release. Every decision she makes is guided by a quiet inner conversation. Does this align with who I'm becoming? Does this honor my peace? Does this reflect my worth? And if the answer is no, she doesn't force it. She doesn't bend herself for approval or validation. She trusts the path she's on, even when it gets lonely. She trusts the timing, even when it moves slow. She trusts the process, even when it tests her. Old soul women move with intention because they've learned what happens when they don't. They've been in situations where they gave too much. They've poured into people who couldn't hold what they gave. They've stayed in places where their spirit felt too big for the room. And every time they walked away from those moments, they didn't just leave. They evolved. They gained clarity. They learned how to protect their energy like it's sacred, because it is. They don't entertain conversations that lack depth. They don't tolerate inconsistent behavior. They don't open their life to energies that feel unstable. They're not cold. They're not distant. They're selective. There's a difference. Their heart is deep, but it's not free to everyone. Their time is valuable, but it's not available on demand. Their love is powerful, but it's not for the undeserving. When they invest in something or someone, they give from a place of intention too. They don't do anything halfway. If they believe in you, they support you with loyalty, encouragement, and presence. If they love you with understanding, patience, and sincerity. If they dream with work ethic, vision, and discipline. Everything they touch has their spirit in it, and that spirit is old, seasoned, and wise. They don't let emotions drive them into reckless choices. They feel deeply, but they move wisely. They can be hurt, but they don't become hateful. They can be disappointed, but they don't become bitter. They let their pain teach them, not poison them. They rise from what tried to break them with more intention than before. Their quietness is not weakness. It's strategy. Their distance is not indifference. It's discernment. Their independence is not resistance. It's alignment. They know exactly who they are, and they refuse to shrink, rush, or compromise that identity just to make someone else comfortable. Old soul women walk through life like every moment matters, because to them, it does. They know life is short, but they also know it's meaningful. So they move with patience, with grace, with self-respect. They don't need to prove anything. They don't need to compare themselves. Their value is internal, not external. Their validation comes from reflection, not attention. And the people who recognize them, the people who truly see them, always feel it. Because when an old soul woman moves with intention, it leaves an imprint, quiet but unforgettable. Their intuition is powerful in a way that can't be explained by logic or backed up by facts. It's something deeper, something spiritual, something that moves through them like a warning, a whisper, a map. Only they can read. They don't guess. They sense. They don't assume. They feel. And most of the time, they're right long before the truth shows its face. When they walk into a room, they pick up energy before they pick up details. They feel tension that no one else acknowledges. They sense dishonesty hidden behind a smile, and they recognize sincerity without needing long conversations. Their intuition works like a silent radar, reading intentions, emotions, and motives before anyone speaks. That's why they move the way they do. Quiet, observant, careful. Because their spirit is always scanning, always picking up signals, always interpreting what others miss. They've learned to trust that voice inside, the one that doesn't shout but always shows the truth. It's not paranoia. It's not overthinking. It's knowing. It's experience. It's the wisdom that comes from being hurt, healed, awakened, and elevated. Their intuition didn't come out of nowhere. It was shaped by every moment they had to survive what wasn't said out loud. They can feel when someone's energy shifts, even if the person still acts the same. They can feel when intentions change, even if the words don't. They can feel when something is off, even if life looks normal on the surface. That stillness in them isn't silence, it's insight. They don't react immediately, they observe. They don't accuse, they analyze. They let people reveal themselves because they know they always will. Their intuition makes them strong, but it also makes them solitary. When you see things others ignore, it forces you to stand alone sometimes. It's not easy carrying a sense of truth that people aren't ready to face. But they don't rush to convince anyone. They don't argue for their perspective. They just wait. And eventually, the truth always catches up to what they felt from the start. What's different about them is that their intuition isn't emotional, it's spiritual. It's connected to something larger than their mind. They have this quiet connection to life, to patterns, to cycles, to energies that flow underneath people's behavior. They don't need proof to know what's coming. They can feel when a blessing is near. They can feel when a loss is on the way. They can feel when a chapter is ending or when something new is about to enter their life. Their intuition protects them. It pulls them away from situations right before they become heavy. It pushes them toward opportunities right when they're meant to grow. It warns them about people who smile with hidden agendas. It guides them toward people who feel safe, real, grounded. It saves them from heartbreaks, from mistakes, from draining connections. But their intuition doesn't only warn, they also sense potential. They can see light in people who don't see it in themselves. They feel greatness in someone long before the person starts showing it. They recognize pain behind someone's strength, hope inside someone's fear, and softness behind someone's guards. That's why people feel understood by them without having to explain much. Their intuition lets them see the part of people that's real, not the mask they wear. They don't make decisions based on pressure or expectations. They follow that inner pull, that feeling that says, go here, protect yourself, slow down, trust this, let that go. They've learned that ignoring their intuition always costs them something. Peace, time, energy, clarity. So now they honor it like it's sacred. And the way they trust that inner voice gives them a power that others misunderstand. People think they're distant, guarded, selective, unpredictable. but really they're just aligned. They move when the energy feels right. They disconnect when something feels wrong. They stay still when life tells them to wait. They take risks when their spirit says it's safe. They follow that quiet instinct that always leads them exactly where they need to be. Their intuition is powerful because it's pure. It comes from a place untouched by ego and untouched by fear. It comes from truth, from survival, from wisdom written into their soul. And once they've learned to trust it fully, they become unstoppable, moving through life with clarity, confidence, and a sense of knowing that most people spend their whole lives searching for. They value depth over attention because attention has never been enough to feed their soul. Anyone can look at you, but only a few can understand you. Anyone can clap for you, but only a few can connect with you. They learned early that loud energy fades fast, and shallow people disappear the moment the excitement dies. So they stopped chasing the spotlight and started looking for what feels real. Real conversations, real intentions, real connections, real meaning. Their spirit isn't built for surface level interactions. They want something that stays, something that grows, something that doesn't turn into dust after a moment of excitement. They're not impressed by popularity, by empty compliments, or by people who only show up when it benefits them. They pay attention to energy, effort, consistency. If someone's presence feels hollow, they disconnect. If someone's words feel rehearsed, they fall silent. They don't get lost in the noise of people trying to be seen. They look for the ones who show up with truth. They're not addicted to being noticed. They're not chasing attention like it's oxygen. They're the type who can pull back, go quiet, disappear from the crowd, and still feel complete. Because their validation doesn't come from being visible. It comes from being aligned. They don't need a room full of eyes on them. They just need one real moment with someone who understands their frequency. Their value system is different. They care about the things most people overlook: your intentions, your character, how you treat people when no one is watching, how you show up when there's nothing to gain. They notice the details, the energy behind the words, the consistency behind the actions. They're looking for depth, not distractions, and that makes them rare. They know how it feels when someone pretends to care, when someone gives attention, but not effort, when someone shows interest, but not depth. They've lived through people who entertain them for fun, not for connection. They've been around people who talked, but didn't show anything real. And all those experiences sharpened their clarity. They can now spot the difference between real presence and temporary curiosity. They value deep conversations, the kind where you talk about dreams, fears, growth, pain, purpose. Conversations that expose who you are, not what you pretend to be. They don't want the highlight reel. They want the truth. They want the story behind the smile, the reason behind the silence, the lesson behind the struggle. They're not scared of depth because they've lived in depth. Their spirit doesn't breathe in shallow places. When someone tries to impress them with status, followers, attention, or material things, it doesn't move them. Not because they don't appreciate effort, but because none of that tells them who a person is. They're more interested in your soul than your lifestyle. They're more concerned with how you treat people than how many people admire you. They don't want someone who shines in the crowd. They want someone who shines in character. People sometimes misunderstand them, thinking they're guarded or uninterested. But the truth is they're observant. They take their time before opening up. They want to feel safe, not just entertained. They want to feel a connection, not a distraction. Their soul reacts to authenticity, not attention. And the moment they feel something is superficial, they pull away without apology. When they find depth in someone, real honesty, real vulnerability, real effort, they give back with the same intensity. They communicate openly. They support fully. They love deeply. but only when the energy matches theirs. They don't pour into someone whose presence is shallow. They don't invest in bonds that lack meaning. They don't commit to anything that isn't aligned with who they are. Their life reflects that same energy. They prefer experiences over impressions, relationships over followers, peace over popularity. They choose silence over loud nonsense, solitude over fake friends, honesty over comfort. Not because they're difficult, but because they know their worth. They understand that depth creates fulfillment while attention creates emptiness. They've seen how fragile attention is. One moment people adore you, the next moment they're gone. One moment they celebrate you, the next they criticize you. That's why they don't chase something so unstable. Depth, on the other hand, is timeless. It stays, it grows, it transforms, it builds. And that's what they choose every time. At the end of the day, they'd rather have one person who understands their soul than 1,000 who only admire their appearance. They'd rather have one real connection than a crowd full of temporary attention. Because what they seek isn't loud, it's loyal. It isn't flashy, it's genuine. And it isn't shallow, it's deep. They carry healing energy in a way that you don't always notice at first, but you feel it. It's in their presence, their silence, their patience, the way they show up without trying to take the spotlight. They're not loud about it. They're not dramatic with it. They don't move like they're trying to impress anybody. Their healing energy comes from a spirit that's been through storms, learned its lessons, and chose to stay gentle anyway. They've been broken without becoming bitter. They've been disappointed without becoming cold. And that resilience shows in the way they make other people feel safe just by being themselves. When they talk to you, they listen for real. They're not waiting for their turn to speak. They're not judging you in their mind. They're not scanning for flaws. They're present. They give you space to be honest, space to breathe, space to let your guard down. Their healing energy comes from a depth that understands pain because they've had to heal themselves more times than anyone knows. They're not strangers to hurt. They just learned how to turn hurt into wisdom, scars into strength, and silence into clarity. People feel calm around them, even if they were anxious 2 minutes before. Something about their energy slows everything down. You feel like you can finally let go of the tension you've been carrying. And they're not doing anything special. No speeches, no advice, no pressure. Just their presence is enough. That's what healing energy looks like. It's not loud. It's grounding. It reminds you that peace is possible, even if life feels chaotic. They carry healing energy because they don't react off impulse. They don't add fire to fire. They don't meet anger with anger. They see through behavior and look straight at the wound behind it. They know when someone is lashing out because they're hurting. They know when someone is acting distant because they're scared. They know when someone is pretending to be strong just so they don't fall apart. And they don't take it personally. They respond with understanding, not ego, with clarity, not chaos, with patience, not pressure. They don't try to fix people, and that's what makes their energy healing. They don't force you to become better. They don't push you before you're ready. They don't make you feel ashamed for what you're going through. Their calmness is an invitation, not a demand. They're like a quiet reminder that healing is possible, but only when you're ready to face the truth. And when you finally are, they're the type of person who stands right beside you until you find your strength again. Their healing energy isn't soft in a weak way. It's soft in a weak way. It's soft in a powerful way. It's the kind of strength that doesn't need to raise its voice. When they give advice, it hits deep because it comes from experience, from growth, from surviving things that could have destroyed them. Their wisdom feels lived in, not learned from a book. You can tell by the way they speak, calm, steady, intentional. that they've walked through pain and made it to the other side with their spirit still intact. What's special about them is that they don't brag about their healing energy. They don't even always realize they have it. They just know how to treat people gently because they remember what it felt like to need gentleness. They know how to be patient because they remember when life gave them no choice but to be. They know how to make someone feel understood because they spent years trying to understand themselves. People are drawn to them sometimes without knowing why. They feel lighter when they're around them. They feel seen in a world where most people barely make eye contact. They feel valued in ways they aren't used to. It's not magic, it's alignment. Their energy is peaceful because they've done the internal work. They've let go of people who drained them. They've healed wounds that once controlled them. They've forgiven, released, rebuilt, and grown into someone who carries clarity instead of chaos. Their healing energy isn't about being perfect. It's about being real. It's about showing up with honesty even when life is heavy. It's about choosing peace over drama, growth over ego, and love over fear. It's about understanding that healing isn't a moment. It's a lifestyle, a mindset, a commitment to keep rising. And because they carry that energy everywhere they go, people feel it. It changes rooms. It changes conversations. It changes hearts. They don't try to heal others, but somehow they do, just by being who they are. Their strength is silent, but unshakable. The kind of strength you don't see in loud words or dramatic reactions, but in the way they hold themselves when life tries to break them. They don't walk around announcing what they've survived. They don't list their battles like trophies. They move through the world with a calmness that comes from knowing they've already faced storms bigger than whatever stands in front of them today. They don't need to prove anything, not to the world, not to the people around them, not even to themselves. Their spirit already knows its power. They're the type who can be hurting inside and still move with grace. Not because they're numb, not because they're pretending, but because they've learned how to stay grounded even when their heart is shaking. They've learned how to stay centered even when life feels unfair. They've learned how to stay patient when the world tempts them to react out of emotion. That quiet strength isn't an act, it's growth. It's wisdom earned the hard way. Their strength shows up in the things people overlook. It shows up in the choices they make when no one is watching. It shows up in how they respond instead of react, how they walk away instead of explode, how they protect their peace instead of trying to win every argument. People mistake their silence for softness, but they don't realize how much power it takes to stay calm when everything around you pushes you to break your own character. They don't need to shout to make their point. They don't need to fight to prove they're right. They don't need validation to feel valuable. Their strength comes from inside, from a place that's been tested, rebuilt, and reinforced. They've learned how to carry themselves without expecting support from anyone else. And even when they stand alone, they don't see it as a punishment. They see it as clarity. They see it as a sign that they've reached a point where their spirit can hold itself up. People who don't understand them sometimes think they're distant, cold, or detached. But distance is their shield. It's their way of protecting the parts of them that took years to repair. They're careful about who gets close to them, not because they're afraid to love, but because they know their energy is powerful and they refuse to waste it on people who drain them. They're selective because life taught them the cost of giving themselves to the wrong ones. They don't crumble easily. Even when life hits them with something heavy, they take a moment, breathe, process, and then rise again. They might break down in private, but they never stay broken. They allow themselves to feel the pain, but they don't let the pain define them. Their strength isn't about pretending everything is fine. It's about trusting they can rebuild, even when everything falls apart. The world often celebrates loud strength, aggression, dominance, force. But their strength is different. It's spiritual. It's emotional. It's steady. It's rooted. It's a strength that doesn't need recognition because it's not built for show. It's built for survival. It's built for evolution. It's built for becoming. They're the type who can leave behind things they once loved if those things start costing them their peace. They're the type who can walk away from people they care about if those people choose disrespect. They're the type who can rebuild their life from zero because they trust their ability to rise more than they fear starting over. That kind of strength is rare. That kind of strength is undeniable. Their silence is not emptiness. It's focus. It's reflection. It's self-control. They don't respond to everything because not everything deserves their energy. They don't chase closure because they've learned the world won't always give it. They don't beg for understanding because they know their spirit will always guide them toward what's meant. And even though they don't make noise about it, people feel their strength. They feel it in the way they carry themselves. They feel it in the way they handle pressure without collapsing. They feel it in the way they stay gentle in a world that keeps trying to harden them. Silent strength is the kind of power that can't be taken, shaken, or broken. It grows through storms, shines through darkness, and stands firm even when everything around it is unstable. And that's exactly the kind of strength they possess: steady, deep, unshakable.